Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am so excited to be diving into this with you today because we're looking at something that is just absolutely fascinating. We are talking about building stories. And I don't just mean coming up with a neat idea, I mean actually architecting them. Kind of like the way a master builder constructs a giant, complex maze. Today you are going to discover exactly how the authors of your favorite books literally manipulate time itself to keep you right on the edge of your seat. So think about this for a second. Have you ever been reading a book or maybe watching a movie, and suddenly you feel like you were just dropped right into the middle of a totally confusing situation? A story that jumps backward and forward in time, leaving you scrambling for clues just to piece together what on earth is going on? Well, we've all been there. But what if I told you the author is doing that to you on purpose? Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The shape of stories. 2. Linear versus nonlinear text. 3. Why break the timeline? 4. Examples from popular books. 5. Your unchanging spiritual anchor. And 6. Education paired with morality. Let's start with Section 1, the shape of stories.
Moving right along to Section 2, linear versus nonlinear texts.
Okay, let's dive into this. When authors build narratives, they usually pick between two main blueprints. On one side, we have the linear text. This is where events follow a strict, chronological, start-to-finish order. But on the flip side is the nonlinear text. This is a narrative that jumps around in time or uses an unconventional, puzzle-like sequence that, requires you to do some heavy lifting as a reader.
To really wrap our heads around the linear text, imagine you're walking down a perfectly straight hallway. You start at the very beginning on day 1. You walk smoothly and safely to the middle of the story on day 5, and you just keep walking directly with absolute straightforward clarity until you hit the very end on day 10. A linear text safely guides the reader directly from point A to point B to point C. The pace is steady and the events unfold exactly as they happened on the clock.
But a nonlinear text? No way. That is a totally different experience. A nonlinear narrative deliberately breaks the timeline. It jumps around. You might start all the way at day 10, then suddenly flash back to day 1, then skip ahead to day 5. Actually, scratch that straight hallway metaphor. It's more like a roller coaster. It uses an unconventional sequence instead of a straight chronological path. And that creates a super suspenseful, unpredictable feeling. You are literally bouncing around the timeline.
Which brings us to Section 3. Why break the timeline?
Now, what's really interesting about this is how authors actually pull it off. Here are the specific structural clues you must look out for. Authors break the timeline by using flashbacks to the past, or maybe flash forwards into the future. They might even have multiple timelines intertwining all at the exact same time. You also want to look out for sudden changes in point of view, or chapters that are just completely out of order. When you spot these clues, you know for sure you're in a nonlinear structure.
But why break the rules in the first place? Authors don't mess with time just to confuse you, right? They do it deliberately. They do it to add mystery, suspense, and thematic depth. When an author deliberately hides information from you and jumps around in time, it makes you incredibly anxious to know what happens next. It builds a massive amount of suspense. And hey, this isn't just about reading fiction in English class. Knowing the difference between these structures has a real-world application. In your everyday life, recognizing these different structures helps you process information when it's not presented in a neat, perfect order. Think about processing messy news articles, or complicated conversations with your friends, or even doing historical research. Real life is often totally nonlinear, and this skill absolutely helps you navigate it. Let's jump to Section 4, Examples from Popular Books.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we've been talking about. Let's look at some actual narratives constructed using these blueprints. Take the book Holes, for example. Stanley's main journey at Camp Green Lake is a linear plot. It moves straight forward. But wait, Holes also relies heavily on historical flashbacks to reveal the past and explain the present. That part is strictly nonlinear. Or take a look at The Book Thief, where the narrator jumps in time to reveal future events before they even happen. That's a masterclass in nonlinear structure right there.
All right, let's keep those brains active. Time for a quick pop quiz based on the concepts we just covered. First up, what is the main difference between linear and nonlinear texts? Go ahead and say it out loud to yourself. Remember, it's all about how they handle time, following events in a straight chronological order versus jumping around in an unconventional sequence.
Next pop quiz question. How can nonlinear storytelling create suspense?
Think back to those clues we just discussed. By jumping in time, flashing forward, or withholding the middle of the story, the author leaves you craving the missing pieces. And that feeling of uncertainty? That is the exact definition of suspense. Okay, last pop quiz question for this section. Why might an author choose a linear structure instead? Well, sometimes you just don't want a puzzle. Sometimes an author chooses a linear text for straightforward clarity, a steady pace, and to safely and clearly guide the reader along a timeline. Both blueprints are absolutely perfect when used for the right job.
Let's move into Section 5, your unchanging spiritual anchor.
As we shift gears from literary mechanics, the curriculum we're exploring today grounds these ideas in a spiritual context. Quoting Hebrews 13:8, the source material emphasizes that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So in a world full of unpredictable, constantly shifting non-linear changes, the text presents this faith as an ultimate linear constant, a totally reliable, straightforward path that never jumps out of character.
And finally, Section 6, education paired with morality.
The HeroesMart Godly Learners series argues that education without morality ultimately hurts, and it raises a really important point. What is the point of understanding complex literary structures or being really book smart if a person continues to make choices that cause pain to themselves and others? The curriculum insists that a sharp mind must be paired with a strong moral compass.
To provide this moral compass, the curriculum looks to Romans 8:6-7, which promises peace of mind to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. This is really the core philosophy of the HeroesMart experience. The idea that students aren't just learning to pass reading tests, but are learning to anchor a highly educated mind in spiritual truth so they can navigate life with genuine peace.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. You now know how to architect time. You know how to read the complex, messy, nonlinear narratives of the world around you. But as you walk out into that world, how will you use this unchanging spiritual anchor to navigate the complex, jumping storylines of your own life? Think about that as you go through your week. Thank you so much for joining me in this explanator. Keep reading closely and stay anchored.